we have some interesting presentations today. So I'll kick off with a few use cases that at Zont we found being relatively common. We find ourselves in those conversations, and in fact, we have initiatives underway in a couple of those areas. One of those we've already set up a project. So it's these are the things that hopefully will help others identify. If you're working for a vendor, you can use those use cases to identify opportunities. These could be use cases for perfect proof of concepts of your own. If you are working for a company and you're not a vendor, these would be good. These use cases would be good food for thought as you start thinking about applying GenAI within your organization. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So we'll kick off with a few use cases. There are 3 use cases that I'll walk everyone through, and then we'll get into our sessions. So the first session will be led by Boris. Boris will show us how to use generative AI and data to make analytics easy. How to drive insights, how to dig into data without having to bring a data scientist. And then Katilia is going to blow our minds with an XM cloud migration for 25,000. So I'm really curious to see that one. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Come through?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there are 3 use cases. So the first one, I'm going to go through that, and then I'll go through the 3 use cases, and then I'll share some of the probably immediate learnings off the top of my head, something to think about if you're a vendor starting a Gen AI project, or really if you're within your organization planning out a Gen AI based project. These are some of the things to keep in mind. So the first one is something that we're actually working on right now. This is a project with one of our existing clients where we are helping them optimize the entire content workflow. So it started off as a simple translation of the Word document into a CMS structure, and now it's evolving into optimizing other processes. So if you find yourself in a global organization, a large organization that creates a lot of content, this could be something of serious value to you and your teams, especially if you're the one having to manage or facilitate the entire process. The situation with this specific client was that they produce a lot of content. They're in professional services industry, so they produce a lot of content for their website. They focus on consulting bios. They can focus on thought leadership. So there's continuous inflow of content into their website globally from different regions of the world. And it gets tricky when you have to curate that much content, especially when you have to deal with people's profiles and bios. If you have to post them, let's say if it's a consulting business, if it's a legal firm, let's say a global firm, for an example, right? So attorney bios is front and center on those websites. So, and updating those can become a convoluted process. So for this particular client, for instance, some of these updates could take simple updates, really, just to stand up a page, from anywhere from a couple of weeks to get through the entire process of creation, optimization, editorial, review, feedback, and all that, anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of months. And that is a real timeline. The 2-month timeline is not because people are sitting waiting doing nothing, is because just the process itself can get into these cycles where, for instance, once the editorial gets down to modifying the copy, let's say that was written originally to fit the tone and the language of the brand, the original author may or may not like some of those edits, and then they continue to go back and forth. So that there's a lot of back and forth between those teams, and that can get stretched out, especially if you're working with global teams, right? So there's probably going to be a 24-hour delay with each piece of communication, then some misunderstanding, and then finally, when everyone gets aligned around the copy that everyone's happy with, when it gets published to the web, the author looks at it and it just doesn't look right, just visually, aesthetically, and then the process starts over again. So this is where the 2 month mark comes from. So optimizing that with generative AI can save significant amount of pain, time, and cost. From ingesting content to providing immediate preview to helping modify content live as it gets created to fit the branding language instead of having to go to editorial for some of those things, right? So these are types of things. These are the little improvements in the steps that can be baked into the entire process to help streamline the whole thing. You could, in fact, probably shortcut that entire process by using Gen AI by probably 80 to 90%, roughly. Specifically for this client, we're looking right now probably anywhere from 70 to 80. And that's because of just some of the strict requirements that they have. But if we look at the spectrum of enterprise content authoring use cases, you could potentially automate a lot of that where and create a centralized place where everyone would work out of, right? To shortcut that feedback loop and have Gen AI play some of those roles, create specific agents, dedicated specialized agents that will play the role of the editorial, that will play the role of the visual, for instance, editor, right? So these are and provide feedback on the fly. So that's one use case. Now let's move on to another one. So this one was talked about at a Sitecore symposium last year, I believe. It was a big deal. And then prior to that, it was a topic when Sitecore just started getting into generative AI. That's when talks of streams started. Marketing briefs is a big portion of what marketing does, and it can be at least, right? And what it usually happens if you're not familiar with the concept. So whenever someone comes up with an idea for a campaign, let's say we run a campaign on elections, right? So the initial brief is the high level description of the campaign that defines the target audience, the timeline, the channels, the messaging, right? Goals, objectives, potential budget, right? So high level things. This is the brief that you would then take to your creative agency, right? And then the creative agency would turn that into an executable project plan, right? An executable campaign plan. So what it usually happens, especially with companies, large companies, is people come up with ideas, but it takes a lot of time and research to actually put a brief together. It takes time to research the market. Is this idea even worth doing? Is someone else already talking about this? What outcomes can we expect? Are there any, if you're, for instance, in a global company, are there any geopolitical nuances that we have to take into account? Is there something happening in a certain region that's going to throw off this campaign in that region, right? So this is a lengthy process, and a lot of research usually goes into these things. A lot of time goes into these things, and then a lot of time gets wasted because by the time when you come up with a brief, you've done the due diligence and the research, you may decide not to execute on it just because the numbers don't add up, right? So these are the things that we want to automate. It's basically overhead for marketing, right? And because it's hard to automate, a lot of companies choose to run these large campaigns, large, long, lengthy campaigns. Uh, so there's plenty of room to recover, to pivot if something is not going according to plan. However, what we've discovered is actually the opposite is emerging right now uh, in the space, especially with marketing budgets being reduced, is where we're looking at smaller campaigns, smaller size campaigns, smaller size projects on the marketing side. The projects and the campaigns where marketing can prove tangible value, right? So the marketing budgets, based on what we're seeing, based on some of the industry research, are being reduced right now, and the CFOs are being a lot stricter in what they approve. So they want to see value in ROI, and that is an eternal, well, a problem as old as probably the industry itself is the attribution problem, right, with marketing. So it's hard to prove the ROI. So what we're seeing is the move towards smaller campaigns, smaller projects. So with that, now there is a higher need for automating these things. So marketing departments need to be more agile. They need to move faster. So they need to test these ideas, bounce these ideas from the world, from the reality, and see if it would stick, right? And Gen AI is a perfect solution for these things. So in this particular case, we had generative AI going out there and creating the entire brief and as the MVP, right? And there are future phases with market research, with analytics integrations, right? So there's a lot that can be done to make these briefs and predictions and estimates more accurate, more precise, right? More intelligent, considering specific regions or global regions and things like that. So here's another one. So they're massive savings. So this one talks about 30 to 50% of manual effort. It really depends on your company, what kind of briefs you create. You could be easily be looking upwards of 50% cost savings here as well. All right. And then, so finally, here's kind of an obvious one. Translation. So it seems like at least the clients that we have been talking with are in the mindset of the initial Google translation capabilities, right? So when they talk about AI doing translation, they're thinking back to the times when Google just started using AI for translation, and some of that was pretty gimmicky, pretty wasn't ready for prime time. Definitely isn't ready for highly regulated industries. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't it wasn't on point. It was used as an accelerator by translation companies. They in fact they use neural networks for that. And now with Gen AI coming into play, these things became really good, exceptionally good. There's some things to watch out here though, and I'll talk about those on the learning slide. But this is probably the most obvious and the lowest hanging fruit, and it's an easy proof of concept to set up. It's extremely easy to integrate, especially if you have webhooks, if you're on version 10.3 XP or higher, or if you're on Sitecore XP or Content Hub. Really, with webhooks, it's extremely easy to set this up, test it out as a proof of concept. It's also possible to fine tune these things if your company's using taxonomy, if there are certain rules about translation, tonality, certain language nuances, right? Certain preferences for the dialects and things like that. AI is exceptionally good, and not only translates accurately, what it can also do is carry through that emotional impact, which is very interesting in things like CTAs or hero banners and like short form copy that was cleverly crafted by editorial to cause a certain emotional reaction when website visitors read those things, right? So when some of the later models are so good that they can understand that, and then they can carry that through into the target language. So this is really good. So it's night and day from, if you're listening to this thinking back to Google days when they started translating it. Give it a go. You don't even have to go far. Go to ChatGPT, use one of their later models. Give it a go. See how that goes. You'll be impressed. And a lot of times it just comes down to the prompt. If the prompt is cleverly created, if there are good examples given of the translation, taxonomy shared. So if the instructions are given, imagine if you, again, going back to prompting, imagine if you had to train a person to do those things, what would you tell them? What would you give them? So the same thing. And with that, it could automate um, all the translation cost effectively. We have a client who it takes them a couple of weeks to translate a simple blog article through a translation service. 2 weeks. Um, not not because of the process. It just takes them 2 weeks to get it back from their translation service. So imagine doing that on the fly as you're copy pasting the content. So that's another one. Now, there's some caveats to this. There's some learnings from working with Gen AI. There's a lot more. These are probably like top of mind. Some of the things without going too deep, especially if you're not technical watching this video, there are some learnings that you have to keep in mind. So the first thing that we see, even though we're in digital space and we like to think about AI doing great things for user experience on the web, the use of Gen AI for that is currently limited, and there isn't a whole lot of interest, at least in the Sitecore ecosystem right now. Right? If It's definitely different when you start talking about digital natives. However, in the Sitecore ecosystem, what we're seeing is just continuous interest in the operational applications and operational optimization with Gen AI. So if you're looking for an area or a project to either pitch or generate ideas for internally, look into operational cost savings. Look at how Gen AI can help streamline processes, automate processes, make things easier. For instance, with data and analytics, what Boris is going to show us. Then, point number 2, create proofs of concepts and pilots. So Gen AI is a new thing. And just like with any new thing, unless someone's done it, it's hard to understand and envision it. Right? If you haven't experienced, you haven't worked with generative AI, which a lot of executive leadership hasn't, right? The people who are making decisions, right? The decision makers, they don't, at least in the Cypress ecosystem, again, I'm going to caveat that out, don't spend a lot of time playing around with generative AI, right? So a lot of these concepts are going to be new, even though they've been talked about quite a bit. And if you're especially in the industry, this might be second nature to you. You'll find that the majority of executive leadership out there in the company, in the space that we work in, are not very familiar with the real capabilities of generative AI. They've heard about it, things here and there. They've heard about tools. They've heard about some anecdotal use cases, but it's really hard for them to envision how it works, right? So normally, for instance, if you structure a logical path for an argument, it makes sense based on technology that already exists and that's been applied. But if you're talking about something new, it's always best to create a pilot. And with Gen AI, it's extremely easy to do these days. It's with tooling like V0, with other generative AI and development tools out there, cursor test tooling, like it just there's so many things that could be automated, and the proofs of concepts and pilots are a lot more accessible now. You can do a lot with just $20 at your fingertips, $20 subscription, where it used to take weeks and sometimes months. So do a pilot, prepare a demo. If you're trying to convince leadership internally, create a simple pilot, simple proof of concept, because seeing is believing. And with that, and I kind of touched on this, prepare for lengthy convincing cycles, because you're going to need to talk to everyone and explain how that works, because the majority of people just aren't familiar with it. And a lot of executive leadership is used to hearing about tools like Stream or other Gen AI tooling for marketing automation, marketing application. They're used to thinking of AI as a packaged product, right? However, if we really get into the real value comes from bespoke projects, right? So from internal tooling, where we create the data learning effects, where we optimize our models internally that are tailored to our specific needs, and they're specialized in our company rules, right? So ultimate flexibility is important here. So it takes some time to explain, demo, and convince, and be ready for that. And just like with anything new, be ready to show real ROI, right? With traditional project implementations, let's say strategy, whether it's strategy, personalization, experimentation, website implementations, right? New builds, all these things have been around the block. And these are standard types of initiatives that companies have been doing for years now. So most of the time, we don't need to show the ROI, right, of the project. It's the project is there. Sometimes it's already been pre-approved. The budget is ready, right? So it's just a matter of creating choosing the right vendor, let's say, or creating the right plan and the execution. With Gen AI, a lot of your initiatives are going to be new, right? So the CFO is going to be really strict about measuring the ROI on everything new. So be ready to show tangible, real ROI. And this is where the pilot and the POC comes into play again. So if you can create a pilot or a POC that shows the value, you're halfway there. All right. So one of the interesting things is in that we notice, and what we also see is the team composition is shifting with Gen AI, and we're seeing more focus and more work coming to the senior leadership. Where, let's say, in our agency space, in the digital space, senior leadership was primarily client facing or engaging with clients. They weren't technical, right? So it's usually either leading practices, ensuring best practices, uh, managing client engagements, right? So that's primarily the job of senior leadership, right, at digital agencies. However, Gen AI is putting delivery back into the hands of senior leadership, which is actually beneficial for both sides. From the agency side, is it's always, especially with large agencies, it's always a big problem to get the senior people billable because they're expensive and they don't do delivery usually, right, or dedicate only a small portion of their time to that. So getting the senior folks billable is definitely beneficial to the agency, but at the same time, it's also beneficial to the client because they're now working with someone experienced, someone specialized, highly specialized and experienced in the industry. And the innovation of Gen AI makes it financially feasible. So it benefits on both sides. So if you are a junior person on the team, I would highly recommend mastering these tools as quickly as possible because a lot of the responsibility of the junior folks are going to be automated based on what we're seeing. Now, Gen AI seems like a no-brainer, especially if you've been working with it for a long time. However, there are real blockers to AI adoption. These are some of the things that we've discovered from talking to clients and starting kicking off projects and managing multiple different stakeholders. What happens with AI is because it's a new generative AI specifically, because it's a new technology, the requirements for these projects are also different from the requirements of a traditional digital project. And these are the things, agencies, vendors aren't used to thinking about if they're not specialized in AI. And two, the clients aren't used to remembering about until the rubber hits the road, unfortunately. So let me give you an example. For instance, where we're implementing a chatbot for a client, and a simple chatbot that scrapes the information off the website and provides natural language driven answers. And as the chatbot was getting used by senior leadership, not until then we started learning about certain internal rules about how those departments work with each other. So, for instance, certain departments cannot be mentioned together in certain use cases, or certain things shouldn't be said or shouldn't appear in the same answer, or under certain circumstances it's okay to say one thing and under others it's not. So there are these internal nuances that companies follow internally natively, naturally, because they're used to it. These are just the guidelines of the company internally. But now that these things are getting exposed externally, it's sometimes hard to initially translate those into the requirements. So as you gather those things initially in the project, leave no stone unturned. Make sure to talk through all the use cases, all the little details. No, there's no detail that's going to be too small, because if this is your first AI project, you're most likely going to overlook a lot of these things. And if it's not, the client may not remember those things, even if you ask them those questions. So you really have to poke around and walk them through different use cases. And again, back to the POC, build the POC, let them play with it, let them experience it for the first time, because once they actually start experiencing it, then they'll start seeing the difference and the things that should be changed. Because again, it's hard for them to envision that, because it's the first time them using it, something like that. And then I said this before, I mentioned this before, aim for a data learning effect. That's what really separates generative AI, AI in general, from regular coding, regular projects, right? So we want our models to grow in value, to improve. We want our projects to continue delivering value, especially if we're talking about return on investment with the CFO. We want something long living that's going to grow in value, not diminish in value. So I talked a lot about this in a different video on one of the previous Sitecore user groups. So if you have a scanner, there's a QR code on the right. If you haven't seen that user group, there's a separate recording of that session specifically where I get into the data learning effects and the theoretical side of it, and what's worth investing in and what's not. So I'll stop here. These are the 7 learnings, probably probably some of the probably more valuable ones as you start working on your first AI project or considering to roll out an internal AI initiative. These are all the things you want to think through carefully. So the AI projects are different. All right. And with that, any questions?
I do have one. So
Yeah.
a lot of times when we are going and explaining Gen AI initiatives to leadership, they want to see ROI right away. Like give me what am I getting? Like how do you convince them like it's a long-term thing, not just one-off thing? Like the value is in you'll see mostly 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years from now, not just right away. And when you talk about those, another concern is like there's so many tools in the market. Is there like one framework that you can use that can plug in anything they want to use an organization? What answers do you have for that?
I would like to second Katilia because my part actually is the same question I want to address you, Vasiliy. So you said that do POC immediately to show up ROI, which is a valid statement. I appreciate that's right. The question is, if I am middle or let's say beginner level of developer, for me, it would be very difficult to sell it to whoever is on top of me because there's typically a backlog of tasks and you are staffed more than even have you 8 hours in typical companies. So you have to sell this somehow, but the investment takes many hours. It's not like something you can build after work, couple hours, and that is it. It will take weeks in some cases. So how to sell?
Right. So multiple things, right? So one is how do you prove long-term value, right? 2, Catilia, what was the second one?
Yeah, so
It's the tooling
yeah,
off the shelf versus bespoke, right?
right.
Okay. And then where do you find, Martin, the time to do the POC, to do the work, right? So, all right. So first one, the value. Oh, Martin.
Sorry, it's not about how to find the time. It's about how to sell the time to upper management to do this POC.
Okay. So it seems like that's also a value question then, right? How do you show the value? Because once you show the value, then if the value is there and if the value is larger than the value of what you're currently working on, then that's how you do it, right? So showing the value. So anyone in management, if you give them a better, faster, cheaper way of doing the same thing, they'll take it. Right. So I think that's what you're really asking is the value. Am I going in the right direction there?
Martin.
Yes, kind of yes, partly, but you see, the real recipient of this value would be not your linear manager, maybe a couple managers above that. And
Mhm.
only if you access these people, only if you make persuade, allocate the time for you. But typically, this type of developers, they are heavily scheduled months or weeks ahead, and they are maybe overscheduled. So as an individual initiative, it's not kind of doable.
Well,
Or very tough.
there are probably many answers to this question, like how to still find the time and how to sell that in within your organization. It's probably going to vary, by organization, from case to case, right? But
At least
uh
what I've seen is like you have to convince maybe 5 or 10 layer of people, because you convince your director on our other organization, he goes and convinces some other person, then you have to give the
Yeah.
same demo again, then same demo again to the one higher up, then same demo one higher up, and the one at the top CIO comes and no, I don't want this. Like, okay, did I just waste my time? So like, so there's like so many layers you have to like convince. It's getting really, I would say, like at the end, in the end we don't win, but then there's still a learning that you have to start with the idea at the top, not with the people. Maybe it's a top-down approach you have to take. I don't know.
it really depends. It's that's where if you're, let's say, talking about an internal project, you got to figure out the chain of
Mm-hmm.
power, right? Who decision makers are, who are the influencers, every you got to map that out, and you kind of have to. It's sales, right? You got to pursue that. So you got to put that sales hat on and can talk to different people differently about the things that they care
Yeah.
about, right? So showing how your idea is going to benefit them, right? Specifically. So, but back to your question. So how do you show value? I mean, I guess that we're started talking about this. How do you
Yeah.
show, right? How do you
So
show
the
value?
real question is, okay, if I'm investing maybe 30 grand in this, 30 grand right now, I don't get immediate anything returned back because I have to go and train people. I have to go invest in maybe hiring someone who knows this better than the other. And the actual result may come after 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not guaranteed yet until they put their act together, right? So it's a matter of like, how do you convince them? Like, yeah, it's gonna take a while, but it's gonna be, really valuable. That is where the real problem I'm facing right now is like, they don't want to see 6 months from now. They want to see like 2 months from now. That's the biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm. From what I've seen, at least right now, we may be going through the same thing with one of our clients, is where the CFO is pushing back on an idea that is so obvious. It is theoretically, it just makes so much sense. It's
Hmm.
so just ridiculously obvious, and anyone who knows anything about digital would say 100% there's value in this, and I can't believe we haven't done this yet. We are losing money. We're bleeding money because we're not doing this, just massive amounts. At first, when we found it, and we thought it was like we were actually afraid to tell them about it because it was such an obvious thing. It was like, well, maybe it's intentional,
Yeah.
and but even then, in that case, the CFO is pushing back, saying there's no tangible, provable value.
Yeah.
So we're with them. We're doing a pilot. So a pilot that proves the value, just proves it enough to where we have tangible numbers to compare the before and the after, and then prove that it's scalable, and then it's math from there, right? So it's
Yeah. Baby steps, right? Start small.
yeah, and you just have to, at least in this case, the CFO's point was, sure, it works, but will it work for us?
Scale. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's for him in this specific case, he had other projects lined up where the value was tangible and it was there. Here, he didn't see it because the company hasn't done anything like this before. Even though it's an obvious thing for us in the industry, we do this
Yeah.
all the time. I just can't say what it is without naming the client. I don't want to do that, but it's such an obvious thing. But because it hasn't been done by that company before, the CFO didn't have proof of value. So, so
It's
that
also,
maybe that's the answer. The POC, the pilot, a smaller engagement, with Gen AI, these things could be extremely cost effective, really.
mm, Yeah, it's also, he is putting his line, like if that fails, it's his decision that would be counted as failure, right? So that's also, it's about taking risk.
It's well, yeah, but it's also from his side, yes, but from our side, we gotta prove the value, right? We gotta show on an example, pick a thin slice of the project, right, and just that proves the numbers, that proves the hypothesis, and that proves the hypothesis one, and then you got to prove that it can be scaled to reach that larger number that you're selling, the ROI, the long-term ROI,
Yeah.
right? So if you can do that, at least in our case, that made sense, and that could make sense in your case, but that seems like
that's it's kind of like industry-wide problem right now, like convincing. And like in my example, it was a very simple use case. You know how customer service, it's of actually the physical store. People walk in and return stuff. There are like 18 to 20,000 parts they can return, and not every customer service representative will know what part it is. So they click a photo, upload it, and it finds the image of the product, and just okay, this is the product. It saves about maybe 30 minutes per customer. Even that didn't get approval because there's so many things they have to do, train and all that. So maybe long term they'll get ready, but right now they are not. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, seems like, yeah, that's an interesting use case. I'll give you another example.
And your competitors come up with some similar thing, and suddenly they'll be forced to take this on. But that's crazy. Yeah, I've seen this like at
Yeah.
well, same problem. Yeah, cool.
It's not, you know what, here's another example of breaking this down into granular proofs of concept. When Experience Editor came out, and I have this in the Udemy course, I literally went through and I counted the number of clicks and steps you got to take to build a landing page.
Yeah.
And we were able to say then, coming out of that, saying, hey, here are the real savings in terms of effort, because we've counted the clicks, we've counted the steps. And if you don't believe us, watch that video. walk through that, right? So sometimes it takes that amount of just tangible, just walking through and just small bits and pieces of improvement.
Yeah.
But on the bespoke versus shelf, that's another one, right? So that comes up all the time, and that comes up in the form like bespoke versus off the shelf. That comes up like, well, why can't I just do it with ChatGPT or Manus AI, or just why can't I just do that?
Yeah.
And so I think I touched on that in that other video in the previous LA-SOC, but it's flexibility and ownership and privacy and security, all those things. It's with general off-the-shelf tooling, you often get jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what turns a lot of people off and away from Gen AI, because they try these tools and they're like, well, it's not really that great. It's okay. And I can see like it might be okay for some, but not for us. It's like, we need something more sophisticated. And that's where that bespoke tooling comes in, where it's more specialized, where it's more flexible. You get the privacy, you can control security more granularly. So there's a lot of flexibility. And on top of that, you can continue, if you create that DLE, you can continue improving the accuracy of the prediction, and it just keeps getting better by using those. Well, one, you can't really, with most tools, you can't really train them. Then two, if you are able to somehow influence the tool, you're making that tool better. Not, it's almost like it's effectively, you're not getting the full value that you could have been getting if you had your own. So that's, and we get, so that's the question. Then we get another question. It's like, well, why can anyone do that? And it's like, then that goes back to specialization, AI, and it's like, okay, you got to explain the team composition, the roles, and it's like everything that goes into it. And so
I'll give you an example of very simple use case. Like someone was on XP using Solar as search, and they wanted to start conversational search, like show me 3 bedrooms, 2 bathroom homes in Colorado, something like that. It should take that English NLP, break it down into facets, send it to Solar. So simple, right?
Mhm.
There's no off-the-shelf tooling for this.
That's MCP. That's clearly MCP use
Yeah.
case.
And it's a common use case. And to build this, we had to like do so many things. And it would have been so much easier if they just moved to SaaS model, but they were using Solar, right? So all those network thing and internal VPN connectivity, all those made it so difficult. And over on top of that, latency, because these models, they need specialized hardware. If you are running a Llama model or something, to just break it down English into the facets. So there was latency, but overall we did it. But really, it's a lot of bespoke work, which if they upgrade to SaaS model, could have been done easily. So a lot of pros and cons for each, like what to do. And I think in general, the industry is missing some leadership, how to do these things.
Yeah, yeah, and it's there's a lot to talk about there. So let's move on, guys. In the interest of time, we're
Before,
way
before
over.
we move, I got another one,
Uh-huh.
not a question, but a comment.
Okay.
Following what you said, typically another blocker when implementing for some organizations on their side would be specific set of biases. And these biases could be of different shape and form, but you need to precisely work and hit all these biases. Like you need to talk to them and explain, very patiently explain. Like you should clearly say that, first of all, we use AI for the processes, not for the data. We do not process your data. Your data stays untouched. We may use AI, for example, as a process to organize things. We may use AI for doing creating automations, which is a derivative from AI. It will be script, but it will be just a script rather than you feed the data to AI. And script process your data as normally. It actually a process. It saves us maybe 5 times if we would write it by arms, but basically it's the same result. It's the same box in the diagram that operates the data. We're just doing that faster. So this is nothing to scare about. We guarantee we don't touch your data. We don't sell it, or we don't upload it to any cloud. So when you explicitly talk out through all the things, your clients would be more relaxed and facing
Less
this
anxiety.
opportunity. Yeah.
I could probably have a whole session at symposium for all the counter arguments that I had on AI, and it's
Some of these are hilarious, right?
yeah, it's all the way to like, this is going too fast. Like, this is like, we're moving too fast. No, this is way too fast. This it's like,
Yeah.
it's way too good. It's way too good. Anyways, all right. Good question. Thank you, guys. Boris, I will hand this over to you. What show us the GenBI.
One second, I need to figure out how to present it. What the? Oh,
Oh,
here we go. No, it's all
got it.
good.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna continue the discussion. Just we're gonna pivot a little bit, and let me know if you see my screen. Oh, not yet.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna pivot a little bit, and we're gonna apply AI to analytics now. And so we're gonna look at how to go from AI to GenBI. And GenBI is like, it sounds cool. It's really kind of new thing people are talking about nowadays. It's essentially AI for BI, and it's not as simple as ChatGPT. There are differences between GenBI and your common typical ChatGPT, and we're going to look at it later on. But the idea is that you can take your analytical data, and analyze it just outside of typical Power BI reports. Now, in this session, we're going to look at Sitecore CDP Personalize. And why it's so? Because Sitecore CDP Personalize, even though it sounds like it's a great tool for personalization, it can actually be used beyond that. It can be used for analytics, and it is a powerful tool, as we're going to see quite soon. So if you have CDP and Personalize, you don't need any other analytics platform. You don't need to buy Adobe. You don't need Google. I mean, you can, but you don't need to. And so, what I want to say also is that my apology for how this looks like, even though this looks kind of in this beautiful color scheme, it's still Zont digital presentation, so it should be green. But I didn't like green, or this gamma presentation didn't create it green, so it is still Zont presentation. So I'm just saying that. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on now. So agenda is very straightforward. First, we're going to look at why Sitecore CDP Personalize is a good choice for your analytics solution. Then we're going to look at how to integrate CDP Personalize. We're going to look at how to normalize data in a modern environment. And then we're going to look at analysis methods. And here we're going to look at truly application of just beyond standard reports, just doing this crazy analytics. And I have a few examples. I hope this group is technical because I have a few code examples. So we will dive through. So I'll try to go through presentation and spend more time on the demo. Now, beyond monolithic analytics. Now, in a headless environments, and most organizations today are headless. Most of them have multiple products, multiple interfaces, mobile, web, different platforms. These interfaces often are heads of headless solutions, and therefore they produce analytics data, and they also need to have similar experience across the board, and that creates a complexity. And so if we look at the really challenge with traditional analytics in headless architecture, the biggest challenge is data fragmentation across heads, and often heads owned by different teams, by different people. And so what happens is that you might have different analytics platforms, even just finished project at Verisk Analytics, and biggest analytics company in the world, and definitely company knows how to handle analytics. And even there, the challenge was, how do you consolidate, how do you organize this data between different products? And that challenge is definitely not uncommon for others, even smaller companies. So the second big issue is inability to measure true business impact. And as Vasiliy mentioned in a previous session, campaigns, every time we create content on a site, like every time we touch our site, we invest time and money, which means that we need to be able to understand how that content really materializes, or how that affects our revenue, and are we getting any benefit from touching or doing any content development on our site? So it's extremely important to be able to track campaign. So in my head, campaign is not just like a Facebook campaign where you paid money for. Campaign could be as simple as creating a web page. And so once new web page is created, you should be able to say how this web page affected our bottom line, right? And so campaigns are not just paid marketing campaigns. It can be more. And so ability to track that is critically important. Challenges in delivering relevant content, and this is where Sitecore Personalize come to play. So personalization is important, it's critical, but to do personalization, we need quality data, and to get quality data, we need good analytics, and so it's all connected. So we need, obviously we can do basic personalization without deep analytics data, but truly to build modern personalization or not even a hyper personalization, just modern analytics platform, we need good quality data. And finally, attribution challenges. When we have multiple heads, each head might have its own database, might have its own pattern, and figuring out how customers navigate our assets is extremely challenging. When, for example, one head uses Google Analytics and another head maybe Adobe Analytics, or even if they all on Google Analytics, but not necessarily not necessarily, the data is not necessarily shared. So that's really the challenges. And this is where Sitecore CDP Personalize comes to play. It's one platform. It can be used to do real-time behavioral personalization, but it can also be used to capture analytics data. And so here, key capabilities of Sitecore CDP Personalize. Now, I say Sitecore CDP and Personalize. Now, we can obviously purchase each product separately. I don't think anybody would be buying CDP by itself, but Sitecore Personalize is often bought without CDP. Now, to do analytics, you do need Sitecore CDP. That's a caveat. That's why I'm going to say Sitecore CDP and Personalize moving forward, because you need both products for this capability to work. And so here you can do real-time personalization, as Sitecore CDP Personalize is great for web experiences, interactive experiences, triggered experiences, all of that stuff straightforward out of the box. It will work across all channels, no matter whether you have mobile app or you have website and portal, you can deliver experiences across all of these touch points. So for example, you might want to build a simple notification system, alerts and notifications that will stream data to all of your heads. And when one of them, when this message was received on one of the heads, you stop showing this message everywhere else. So this type of functionality is out of the box for Sitecore Personalize. Amazing capabilities on that front. Strong analytics.
Are you, just in case, are you sharing anything?
Oh, you don't see? Oh,
I can see it.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see as well.
oh, should I share?
Oh,
Yeah.
you can see it.
Yeah. Okay. Phew. Good. So now, strong, as far as analytics, I mean, we've seen Sitecore CDP, Sitecore Personalized reports. They're not great, but they're there. But analytics come to play, as we're going to see in a few, is that we can actually get this data out and actually build reports. And we're going to see that pretty much the reports we can build are really, there are no limits to what we can build. And then complete customer picture. So here we have a few options. We can actually enrich Sitecore CDP with customer data, or we can actually use other tools to use CDP with that external data to build our stuff. So all possible, all low code, all straightforward, almost straightforward. Now the integration process is truly straightforward. So first we select integration approach. There are a few options. We're going to look at them in a few. We have to define taxonomy, normalize our data, maybe apply some personalization with behavioral data, and then visualize and analyze the data. That's really the process. Quite straightforward. So integration is somewhat a challenge. So there are 4 options how Sitecore CDP Personalize can be integrated. So REST API is not relevant to this discussion. It's essentially developers' way to connect to CDP Personalize. So it's not good for analytical behavioral data. But then we have 3 other options: Cloud SDK, Engage Script, and Engage SDK. So Engage Script is essentially bug saver legacy script, great for when you have maybe HTML front end, but it is legacy, right? So not modern front end. Now, Engage SDK, great for any modern front end. It can be used for XP and XM, but now Cloud SDK is coming to replace Engage SDK for anything Sitecore. So if you have Sitecore XP or Sitecore XM, you will use Cloud SDK basically, and it can be done now. It's in beta, but it works. We tested it. So if you have XP, Cloud SDK is an option. So once we selected our integration, the next is to figure out Sitecore data lake integration. Actually, technically speaking, is how we're going to take exposed data, pull data from Sitecore CDP into our analytics platform. And so here we have truly 3 options. Audience export. This process generates files like CSV or JSON once on demand, but data is delayed by a day typically. So I think cut off at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Eastern time or something like that. So, but that gives you segment data. The second option is Sitecore Connect integration. I've not personally used it like this. I mean, I think Sitecore Connect is a great product and they have recipes and it's probably a way to go, but still it sounds quite expensive if it is used for large amounts of data. I think it's a great option for maybe application integration or transactional integrations, but not good for analytics. And the last option, the best option is to use Sitecore essentially S3 buckets. So our data, our CDP data is actually exposed in S3 bucket by default. It's all there. So we can reach out to Sitecore and request access to that S3 bucket. In that bucket, data stored in a Parquet format, and it's quite normalized. We're going to look at this data. It's quite great. It can be used for analytical purposes quite nicely. So the best option is this this S3 bucket option so far. Again, even with this option, there's a delay. So it's not real time. We can't really get data in real time. So there's typically 1 day delay for this type of data. So next is taxonomy, and that is absolutely critical in Sitecore CDP specifically. So for those who are familiar with Adobe, for example, IAP platform, in IAP platform, we can create schemas, define schemas, and ensure that data that we collect maps to those schemas. In Sitecore CDP, in Sitecore Personalize, there are no fixed schemas. So we can extend it, but or we can extend events, but every event, like developers can extend them. They can create any schema they want. And so the problem here is that we're going to end up having like very like inconsistent data later on in our analytics platform. So we need to make sure that we use consistent name conventions. We design this payload schema, and we keep it consistently across different channels. And obviously we want to document it, because once event is fired and someone may have updated your front end, that configuration goes away. So you wouldn't know what that means. So it's extremely important to capture these details inside, specifically in Sitecore CDP Personalize. But then again, once it's done, you have everything that you need to build like successful platform. And so this is the most important slide. This is essentially how this integration potentially works. Now we have a Sitecore S3 bucket with our data. We have to reach out to Sitecore and do this crazy configuration. Now, we can't really pull this data out just yet. Unfortunately, as of today, we have to store this data. We have to copy this data to a different S3 bucket or somewhere else, because even though we have access to Sitecore S3 buckets, we can't really use it for anything else. And actually, I've talked to Sitecore I've been talking to Sitecore for about a few months now, and they promised that they will open up their bucket, which means that if you have Microsoft Fabric, you're going to be able to connect to your buckets, your Sitecore buckets directly without need to copy data over. So this piece here, so just temporary piece until Sitecore implements that. But once you have your own bucket, you can shortcut it to your Fabric. And in Fabric, then you build your modern architecture. The typical recommendation is to follow medallion architecture. It's good. It's typical structure for Fabric or Databricks, where your first bronze layer is your raw data. And in our case, we might have a data from Sitecore CDP Personalize in a Parquet format, but you might have a data from campaign data in a format in CSV file, for example. So this data can all be dropped into this bronze layer, and then you actually format this data, normalize it, validate it, and then when this data moves to gold state, that's when this data becomes a product. And from here on, this data can be used in Power BI or for your AI automation. And so we're gonna let me show you guys how this looks like. So this is quite amazing. See, this is Sitecore CDP ERD diagram. You see, it's a very straightforward data, easy to understand, easy to use. It's published on their site. You can look at, for example, guests, like what they are. So everything is well documented. easy to use, easy to build, powerful data, and all your front end events, like all these clicks, all purchases, all of the data is available right there. So great stuff. Now, so the next, we're gonna look at now we're gonna look at good stuff. So let's look at the demos. First, let me open this one. Okay, so oops, let me find the right one. Okay, I have to move away. Okay, so and this is actually reports that you can create from Sitecore CDP personalized data set. Now, and stop me at any point, by the way, if you have any questions as we move to the second part, stop me with questions or if you have any. So the idea here is that, as Vasiliy mentioned, we want to build meaningful data sets that will describe what's going on with your website beyond just a simple clicks or simple Google Analytics. So we've developed a number of patterns, but you can go as complex or simple. This is just generic type of report that shows you visitor information. We've built things like campaign halo effect, that we have a secret sauce that calculates this effect of campaign even after campaign have ended. So there are a lot of things you can build, but what I'm trying to say, all of that is based on this Sitecore CDP data set that we capture. So that's really the powerful stuff. But in my opinion, this stuff like reports, I mean, I don't like reports. They're like looking at the reports, it's hard to really understand what's going on. And some trained people can, but for me, I'd rather have like conversational type of analytics where because at the end of the day, what I care about is not necessarily how many people came, or what I care about is I spent $3,000 on this campaign. How effective this campaign is. Did I get my value for this campaign, or should I invest money in something else, right? So these are the questions marketers really care about the most. Where to invest their marketing dollars. And so that's where I think conversational analytics really comes to play. Now, I can't really show the conversational analytics in, I guess, in a format that, because it's all AI based, right? So let me do this. Let me present few use cases how conversational analytics might work, and so that might be the best way to go. So I see three patterns to apply conversational analytics, how we can implement it. First pattern is LLM to SQL. Now, in this example, we use simple code. It's essentially, this is my data set, my users, and they have comments, right? There are 4 users and 4 comments, some of them positive, some of them negative, some of them neutral. And so LLM to SQL, what it does, de facto, it generates SQL query for me, and that query tries to understand the data. So in this case, and I'll show you what this query did. So this is my input, right? Here I have great product, had some issues, negative, customer service was excellent, positive, and would recommend positive as well. But if we use LLM to SQL, you can see can you see my screen, by the way, well, or should I make it a bit bigger? So you can see here what it did, what this LLM did. It just created a statement where I have keywords typed in. So as obviously you can imagine, accuracy is quite low. So it's been able to detect obvious positive ones, but it missed on other questions. So for example, would recommend to other came as neutral, but it's actually a positive comment. So this type of, but still, I was able, it was able to generate relatively decent query, and it can be used for specific things. It's quite cost-effective way to analyze your data. The second example is more complex. Here we use LLM to SQL plus row level LLM. So we use LLM to generate query. But then for each row, we also execute LLM to analyze it. And so same data set, but now I've got a lot more accurate representation. But in this case, obviously, cost of execution is quite high because for every row, for every you have to essentially run LLM call, right? And so this is quite expensive in that sense. And so, and this is the ultimate kind of a powerful way to do it. So here we use LLM plus embedding. So what it means is that we use vector search. So whenever keyword is typed, we use like vector search to pull relevant data in, only relevant data, making the call itself smaller. And based on that, we actually get results back. So I'm not going to go through the code itself, but this is actually how answer came through. So as you can see, show me like, yeah. So yeah, so so here it even grouped it like this. So there are multiple ways to do it, but what I'm trying to say is that all of these options are. That's why I didn't really show like the demo for during my presentation, because there are so many ways for different purposes. We might need to apply different techniques to do this analysis, and essentially that's really the complexity here, that there is no like one solution that fits all use cases. And so now we can look at this example. Let me see. So in this example, we ask this question. Now this example goes against this data that you saw. So in this example, we asked this
One
question.
question. Boris, one question.
Sure.
So the analytics that we are seeing leveraging AI, so is that part of the Sitecore CDP Personalize license, or it's additional?
So yeah, that's a good question. I should have made it clear. So this is actually Microsoft Fabric. So once we pull data, so actually let me do this. Let me go here. So so this is actually Microsoft Fabric, and in Microsoft Fabric, I can create a shortcut to my analytics data from Sitecore. So what you see here is data that I get from Sitecore daily, once a day. And so this is my customer data. So I can click on this file and there will be this data set, right? So, so getting data out of Sitecore costs nothing, right? I mean, there are some costs, but it's very, very limited, small. Fabric can be expensive, but I mean, it's if your organization already have Fabric, it's great product, so you might use it, right? If you don't have Fabric or have Databricks, they have similar scenarios. So, but once you got, but you need to be able to run Python script. So you can be in Fabric or you can be somewhere else, but you need to be able to run Python scripts, and preferably you need to be able to run Spark, because that's where you can run scalable analytics. So this example, or both examples, they run in Spark. But I use LangChain. It's one of the open source tools where you can connect different different models together, chain them together. So, but yeah, does it answer your question?
Yeah, I got you. So basically the main idea is that bring the data from Sitecore CDP and then use in Fabrics to build that dashboards, right?
Correct. And so in this case, see, this is what you can do. So once you pull your data out, you can write like this long code, like not a lot, right? It's relatively small script. And from here, you can say, describe most common user journey, advice where most users are dropping off. And so you can see what it did here. It actually generated this query that does exactly what I asked what this question is asking to do. And so that tells me right now where people are dropping off. So I mean, it's relatively accurate, and I've tested it, so it works really well in that sense. But the best part, yeah. See, it runs every time my data might have changed. So it's different results. Let's look at this example. Calculate site-wide bounce rate. And here we are, like it just created a query, executed query. And now we can actually see bounce rate that has been calculated. Now, imagine this. So this is actually right now, this is you, a technical person writing a script. But imagine this. Let's say we have a product like this that you exposed to your business, where you developed a small application that actually talks to your backend, Python backend, and then executes those queries. So you can actually give marketers a powerful tool where they can go in and literally query their data. Obviously, we have to be mindful of like all this governance things and deletes. I mean, because you can write like delete my data and it will delete it. I mean, literally, it'll write delete statement. So, but with all of that, there's definitely power to this. I mean, I think to the previous discussion, part of the challenge is this data governance. How do I make sure that nothing bad will happen to my data if I open it to AI tools, right? Because that's a challenge. But once you have it, you can then start doing this conversational analytics type of thing. So where you ask a question and then the answer comes from your data set. And so I think, in my opinion, reports are a thing of the past, right? No one really, not many marketers would appreciate reports after we perfect this. But this is not yet production ready stuff. So this needs to be perfected. All of us need to work on this, and we need to figure out the best way to really deliver this. But this is just the beginning of this kind of GenBI analytics. So that's really all I have.
Yeah, no, this is very helpful for especially marketers because they don't need to dig into the complete graph or that analytics. They can just type what they need and it will bring for them.
Yeah, and here, for example, I asked the question based on which campaign should I invest next month, and it gave me answer. Now, obviously, part of the problem is how do we prove that this is really the case? And many are afraid, but I think the challenge is if you don't do it, right? You're never going to know, and someone else will start doing it. And so suddenly you're going to fall behind. So in my opinion, we need to start doing this stuff, not necessarily trust it 100%, use it with grain of salt, as they say, right? Use it carefully, but expand on it, because that knowledge is critical to build better AI applications. We need to have that knowledge, and that knowledge applicable specifically to your organization, not necessarily like my knowledge writing prompts for one org might not be applicable for another org. So it's extremely important to try and improve. So that's kind of what I think will happen. But this is just the infancy of this idea, and that's all I have.
Got
And
it.
I have a quick question. Also, my guess is that you can build a chatbot using the same technology, right?
Yeah.
Create a
So
chatbot that basically is going to answer questions using your organization data.
Yeah, but even more than that. So what it can do, so so in this case, like in this example, right, you can build chatbot that does chain execution. First, it's gonna understand, like if you look at this example, this is really crazy stuff. So first, it knows the tables. The better they named, the better this chat application will be able to understand them. So once you put it in the chat and you put it like this, right? Based on users' question, which tables are most relevant. So what it does, it first understands which tables to choose from. Like you might have hundreds of tables, but it's going to look at all the tables, all their metadata, and it will pick up the right tables for that query. And then it's going to actually construct the query. So when you ask a question, so the first challenge is to construct the query. Second, execute this query. And third, you can apply AI on top of the data set that query returns to explain it. So that's truly chained analytics, because you have multiple steps here. First step is to generate query. Then you execute this query, and then you ask, and then you pull data from that query, and then you kind of ask this user question. So, but what I'm saying is it's relatively straightforward process. You just construct this chain execution and you expose it through the chat to user. obviously considering protection and all of that, because this query can execute like if you, I mean, we understand what this can do, right? In the wrong hands, this
Mhm.
this is scary stuff. But yeah, if done correctly, a lot of power. But I get that business are scared, right? Because I mean, but they don't know what they're missing on. That's, I think, important, because imagine this, now they can query all of their data without actually ever need for analyst. Their ChatGPT can be their analyst to some extent. So yeah, definitely must have for analytics for anyone who wants to build this. But I think it's like, yeah, it's the, I just presented on Microsoft SQL user group, and like in that, most folks there were in the process to build this or wanted to build this, and all were saying that data governance is been a challenge. Like business would
Yeah.
not give them green light because of that, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, maybe a few more months, like until someone publishes an article or does a white paper. I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just, but we need to be ahead of it on our technology side. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the power here is remarkable
Yeah,
compared to reports that just show a glimpse, a picture, relative picture, right?
yeah,
Best case. And then when you see an anomaly, you don't know where that came from. And usually with reporting, if you're well prepared, you would have shown up having done the research why certain things are showing differently, let's say on this report. This gives you real-time access to that information, right? Instead of spending, probably, I might be saying the obvious, but we have sometimes anomalies. For instance, with a good example, Boris, about the company we both know very well, they had a problem where their analytics were skewed by bot traffic. Normally that doesn't happen because executing JavaScript is expensive, but it took them a long time try to sift through the traffic, the patterns, try to figure out try to filter out the bot traffic out of the analytics, where this could have been a walk in the park for something
yeah,
like this.
yeah. Well, for this one, yeah, you would have just asked what's the unusual happened in the past 3 days. That's it. You would have gotten an answer like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can ask right questions in real time. That's one thing. Two, you could, to your point, you could run like a scheduled job
Yeah,
that would do a certain type of investigation on regular basis, right? Looking for new segments, new patterns, new information to draw the insights from, right? And these are the things that obviously were hidden
and not to
from.
mention that you can also use Copilot if you have Fabric, you can use their Copilot. So and the idea is that once you have your analytics data in this modern analytics platform, then you suddenly can do a lot of things. So that's really the key, because right now analytics is like, if you have analytics in Google, like it's there. If you have your CRM somewhere else, like you don't have that truly a representation with this modern tools, modern architectures. Now we can do all of that, and so it's relatively not that hard anymore, thanks to Microsoft's and Databricks of this world.
That's pretty remarkable. All right. Well, Boris, thank you so much. This is mind-blowing. A lot of food for thought. There's so many applications and ideas. And the more I think about it, the more ideas I get. So let's go ahead and move on to our session on XM Cloud. Katilia is going to shock the world with $25,000 migration to XM Cloud. Let's go. Oh,
Yep.
there we
Hear
go.
me?
Yep.
All right. Let me start here and move this on my other screen. Okay. All right. So we had a really interesting use case a couple of months ago, which I was leading, and it's not a lot of people know about this. Sitecore has its own vertical demo. It's a public Git repository, similar to what Habitat used to be before, but it's built for XM Cloud, and it's Next.js. and it has everything that you need: serialized, installed, multi-site. And I'll talk to you about the use case that we ran into and why we suggested this. Okay, now moving on. Oops. So yeah, this was our problem statement from the customer. Like, they had 21 websites. They were on different platforms: Umbraco, Wix, WordPress. And a little background is there in the real estate industry. They don't have, they have, the reason they have 21 websites was interesting to know, like what they wanted to do, how they ended up with 21 websites. And that's where the details were. That, the devil is always in the details. Like, they went to another agency and they were quoted 1.5 million for this transition. Now they come to us and we always ask, like, okay, tell us, why do you have 21 websites to begin with? And that's when we start digging in. And basically, they are in real estate development. They buy land and build homes on it. So they have to build a website for each community they are in. And the website may not live more than 6 months. In some case, maybe 3 months, because they just want to be sold and then they bring the website down. So that's how they end up in 21 website at one point. And it's, and then we started asking, okay, give us all your websites and their retirement date. Like, when do these websites go offline? And then we found, like, there's no point of migrating as is to the XM Cloud platform. What they can do is start building the new ones on XM Cloud instead of migrating. So that was basically a game changer, because we knew their sites are very simple. When you're building a site for a community, like very localized community, you need to have like 3 or 4 pages, some blogs, and basically just telling about the community, what you're building, some features about the home, things like that. And that is where the verticals demo was really standing out, because it gives you all the ability to build those pages in Page Builder quickly. And they don't have to be trained a lot, because it's very intuitive right now. You can right click, create new pages. In fact, right click, create new website using a template right now. And then we went on, and basically I demoed it to the leadership. They were not ready to believe it to begin with, that it's already there, it's public, this repository, and they wanted to see a demo. So 1 demo, 2 demo, 3 demos, and ultimately what we found is we need to like get a new instance of prod. They were already on XM Cloud with the other website, the main website they had. And in their license, they already had another prod instance and another dev instance. So they were not using it. So that was really good. They didn't have to pay anything extra for any licensing. And this verticals demo really need to connect it to GitHub, and installation was done in like maybe 8 to 12 hours. So they could have their own instance of this demo site in 8 to 12 hours. And then we started strategizing, like, well, how and when you should bring over the new websites. They already had a design of the old websites. They need to remap it with what I'll show later on, the new design of the new website. Obviously, there will be some dev work, some specialized component which they don't have, which we could build very quickly. And all the content was coming from CMS. There was no external integration. And that was the idea we were proposing. So because it's all content like they used to do in Wix, WordPress, Umbraco, just feed the data and that's where it reads from, no external integration. Only thing they wanted was forms where someone could ask, basically it's a lead generation, like anything about the community. And then there was training and content entry and go live. So pretty much the 1.5 million project, which the other agency projected, became a 25,000 project here. And I'll show you in the next slide what is it we are talking about. I'm not sure if everyone has seen this. Sitecore has a demo site where you can see different demos they have built, like Summit, Shop. Shop uses Auto Cloud as well. And then Summit is XP, there's XM Cloud version of it too. And this is where it was very useful to have a demo site by Sitecore. And then the public Git repository could build more trust, like it's actually working. We don't have to spend time on like cloning and building it ourselves. So as an MVP had access to this website, the demo site, I could create my own instance easily on demand. And I'll show you what how it all looks like in the demo site. All right, so this is something when you get a demo, you have to say what products you want. Let me move it out. What products you want here. And then you configure these products. Like in my case, I wanted XM Cloud. So yeah, okay, you have 2 demos for XM Cloud, Place Summit Verticals demo. You can see a preview here. And then there are tools here, what are the products doing involved here. I selected this one because there was more, it had more components, gave it a name. And once you see where it deploys, it gives you option to deploy in Vercel, or if you can bring your own deployment to other systems, platforms. It generates basically an instance for you. So right now I have 2 right now. So this is the one it generates, and inside that you get the screen where it tells you everything about the instance. So the 3 websites here: service, financial, default, and the launchpad and editor are there. This is one of the sites. It is a nice looking site. You have a video hero, some 5-column CTA, 3-column CTA, 50-50, a lot of components, moving stats, and then some blogs, news component, document. I mean, pretty much what you need for a standard website are here. So this, when I demoed to them, they were really like blown away that this is available in the public Git repository here. So that was a good start. Now the next step was, okay, there are 2 websites here. We need to map it so that they have their own design. So in their design, it was a 50-50, but there was no button here. So I just told them like this, if you leave blank, it won't show up, kind of thing. Mostly training. And then they had something, okay, we don't need these accents. And it was a setting in page builder, you can remove these accents. And adding new style was easy. I'll show you how later. These stats, they were showing, okay, how many homes built in this year, how many lands acquired. So these are just right there. They didn't have to do anything. And another 50-50. And then you'll see the only place where they needed some adjustment was the footer. Because right now it's pretty simple. Yeah, it works. But they wanted to maintain some brand consistency. So we had to build a new footer and a header. Because right now you'll see it doesn't give you the ability to open what's inside portfolio, what inside services, just one level. And they need to see another level. That was a pretty simple one. And then this demo site also gives you to like toggle the styling. We had to remove this because obviously you don't need this on the live site. Languages, they were using Google Translate, which was doing the job, but then they started using Sitecore languages, which is pretty simple. So any questions until now? If not,
So
back.
basically, you reused, you got existing website, existing infrastructure there. You reused all the components, and it was matter of just styling. And the reason to it was because they were not strict to preserve the sites as they are. So it was kind of redesigned, right?
Right. It was, and they were open to it, right? They were saying, okay, our websites live only for 3 to 6 months. We don't have to spend a lot of money in making them consistent. Like they're like 4 or 5 platforms. They were okay with all. They already had different designs for all those 5 platforms. This was actually standardizing it for them.
So you only moved content there.
Content also, we didn't have to. The reason is what we did in the strategy was we saw that most of the, like out of 21, 5 sites are going to be retired in 2 months. So like, why do we have to even bring it over to XM Cloud? Because in 2 months, they won't be used anymore. You can start building new websites on XM Cloud while all of these fall off from the existing platform. All
Okay,
of
but
these.
where the content appears, the content that eventually appeared on the pages, where did it originate from?
It's XM Cloud. So
yes,
the content.
But where did it come into XM Cloud from?
Oh yeah, so that's content entry. So they actually did it manually. It was so simple.
Makes sense.
So yeah, they had like 3 to 4 pages each website, and they were able to launch one website in 2 to 3 days. So that's how it started, and we brought over this GitHub repo, forked it into our the customer's organization. I mean, in a matter of clicks, they were able to see in the dev environment. They were able to play around and see, yes, this is the component, looks good. Do the assessment of, okay, let's change this component to this component from this demo site. And they drew a Figma, okay, this is how it was old, this is the new one, and it could standardize it very well. There were like header and footer that needed to be rebuilt, but that's not a lot of work. Now, let's see the demo site, like how it looks like, what it comes with. So these are two.
Sorry to interrupt you. May I
No
ask
worries.
you about the team effort? What was the team, overall team, and who was
Right.
involved in what?
So right from the start, there's actually an architect involved and a PM involved. So the architect was actually looking into this GitHub repo and see what could be brought over as is. Is there any limitation on this particular demo? Any open issues? That was important to highlight if there were any. But the issues we saw were like nothing that could have stopped any automatic upgrades, or it was mostly styling issues here that could be fixed by our front-end developers. So that's one architect bringing over and setting up the environments, Vercel, this installing local development environment. The PM was at the same time working on assessment. Basically, you have, let's say you have this component on the demo site and you have a video component on your Umbraco site. So this is how you have to switch it. The title goes here, it was here, this title was here in Umbraco, so it comes here. So that kind of mapping the PM and the BA, it was the same person who did it for them. So that's the team, just one PM and one architect. And later on, we brought one front-end resource to build the header and footer. That's it. And only for like 1 week.
That's impressive.
It is actually.
It's really good idea to take into one's arsenal of tools.
Right. And especially the life cycle they had, like we could see every website falling after 3 to 4 months. So by the end of October, all of their 21 website would have fallen off. Like there's no point of like migrating. So some of them would have like maybe 1 or 2. So the idea was, okay, why don't you start from here building new websites on the new platform rather than bringing them over? Let them be there where they are. All they have to do was pay for the existing extension, and which was still less than building and moving to XM Cloud from scratch. Right. So let's see it.
So
the demo site.
one question.
Yeah.
So in this case, if my understanding is correct, they clone the
GitHub repo here.
GitHub repo, right? For their personal GitHub repo, and from there they started in the site.
Right. So they brought over everything. So in this repo, you have all the items, every component on the website.
Okay.
And everything that you see here is going to come over as is. You'll get this site basically on your instance. It has multi-site setup. And now, so these two became the reference sites for any assessment, these two sites. Now, so we renamed them to some like demo 1, demo 2 for them, so that they could look at it. And then the new website they want to build was actually, let me go to the content.
Okay, so the idea is that with the help of this demo site availability, they were able to build quickly their site.
Right. They had to just do the remapping of their existing website, what they designed the new website to be, how they want to, like, if this, they had a video hero here, like playing video background.
Yeah.
This was appearing here. So they were okay with moving it from here to here, which is not a, like they were open to that. If they had like specific requirement, no, this needs to be there, then we have to come and adjust this component, not create it from scratch. We had to go and adjust this component and put it there.
Nice.
So it's, you already have some basically a starter code there. So that's pretty easy to go and modify it. And then you'll see here in the content tree, they have 3 websites now. So these remain as is as reference. All we have to do is like insert new headless website, and they create a new node like this, and they could add, just using the page builder, add a new website, add a new page. And that's where, let me go there in the services. There's one more aspect to it. They also have the ability to create their own components, which I'll go deep in a few. But in the page builder, what they had to do was right click on the home node and add a new page very easily. Basically, yes, you need to create a subpage. You select what kind of subpage you want. And then once it's there, you just, these are the components. You drag and drop, enter data. That's pretty much they had to do in content entry. For their sites had like 4 or 5 pages at max, maybe 1 or 2 blogs. This is how they did it. And this is for the existing components. If there's one more aspect to this demo site is this design library, the bring your own components, which they really liked because without any coding, they could generate components. Like we don't need a front-end resource to generate any of these components. You can say add component, give it a name, decide what collection goes to, let's say. And then after that is added, you go and define the fields, like what goes here. So, okay, this is something, you just make it something, add an image, and you can use it on any of your 21 websites that you have, or any website in future without any.
This is first time I ever see anyone using components builder commercially. And once again, it's thanks to the customer being that flexible to
Yes.
accept it.
Yes, absolutely. They were open to this. And ultimately, it's about value. And they saw the real value, like moving to one platform from there, like Wix, WordPress, Umbraco, HubSpot into one. And this is not the only thing. All they want, they now have one style library for all their websites. So all of this is in Sitecore right now. They were maintaining it outside for all those 5 different places. They have standard style library right now.
Side question about style library. Do you have a option to somehow export serialize it so that if something goes wrong, you can get it back? Same as components, basically. With these components you just showed, you can do that. And again, demo team made this possible. They have the serializer, deserializer. But what about the styles actually?
Not right now. So what they're doing is using dev as a playground, and then they do it on prod. So they have to be careful. But then this section is only used by the designers. So it's they know their basically limitation here. If something goes wrong, so
you won't be able to restore that.
Right.
If something goes wrong.
But then I told them like these things are in actually we can recreate it easily looking at what's existing. So the demo site here is always going to be there, the one I'm looking at here. So if something goes wrong, they need to look at what were these numbers. I can give them a screenshot of like if they're like looking for some reference easily. So, but yeah, but this is a functionality they were looking to add by a new product, basically maintaining style library. And this comes here with the demo site. Actually, it's XM Cloud. You can do it. And you can create themes, like you can create themes to say which button gets what, which element gets what styling. And then in page builder, you'll get the same one when you bring your own component. Like this, if you add it here, not here, let's say add it here. I'm gonna add it here, let's say main. So it's adding, so you can select the theming once it gets added here. Yeah, there are 4 versions, large, small, and then there is the theme. Like right now, there's 2 theme here. You can add as many themes as you want, and they could also maintain a brand consistency here that only predefined themes can be reused on the components. So a lot of new initiatives at their organization because they were open to like centralize, and they saw that it's one system that they can utilize for multiple things, not just the website. It's also the style library and component library. So that, I mean, pretty much it sealed the deal for them, because not just one, like looking ahead for like 5 years from now, they can still reuse what they built from web. If they have to build a new component, they can reuse for any future component. Earlier, they were on, if they build on Wix or on Braco, they could not use on WordPress. So it's centralizing all of their components as well. Okay, like this one I was talking about, they don't want this here. So it was in the styling section, like somewhere here it said, let me see. This left, right, or yeah, with dotted accent. If I remove it, it removes it. So all these are there. You want it, you don't want it bordered, you remove this alignment center. So this is what they really like they have the flexibility. Not every site needs to look the same, because they can change left, right, and change the spacing and all that, and add border, accent, image. A lot of flexibility here. All right, going back, like what it really did for them is basically they were launching sites in days. Basically, new community. All it takes is for the new website is right-click new website, and the client is now trained to go and configure Vercel, what domain they want, connect it to XM Cloud website, and then site settings, and it spins up a new website. One thing we had to do was like obviously styling updates. They wanted some in the code, like when the GitHub comes here, they were looking for more styling options, so we had added more. That was just 1 day of work to give them more options, more colors, more left, right orientation things they wanted. And their one specific ask was, which I was opposing initially, but they really wanted, is on each page, they wanted an override, let's say, override styling CSS option. But they say they will need it someday because of urgent need, but if they want to add some kind of JavaScript on the page, they wanted that ability. So what we did for them is, for each, like whatever it inherits from this page, we added a multi-line item, so where they can add a JavaScript or some styling that goes in the head. That's pretty much, and that was the ask they wanted, just as flexibility for future. But that's pretty much it. You'll see that this website also has articles, search, and especially they were in the real estate business. They really like this out of the box. You see, so they're like, okay, yeah, this is cool. They like it. And forms, this has a form which we did some work to put it into Azure Service Bus on Summit. That's pretty much it. All of these are standard there, FAQs, some terms, and then these are 4-column CTA. Yeah, overall it was a good win. But then, I mean, this wouldn't have been possible with this Sitecore Verticals demo. So thanks to the Sitecore team for making it public, and it is having a good amount of traffic as well. So it's performing well. All right, that's we are at time almost. Yeah, so let me know if you have anything else, any questions. I would like to definitely answer your questions.
Just curious, how long did it take the designers to learn to use the component builder? It was fast, or
So
how it
some of
goes?
the designers, like there were only 3, but one of them got it pretty quick, because
Okay.
it's, I don't know, it's just person to person. And they were like, okay, yeah, these are where the fonts are, these are where this, and this is where I go and design my components, add component. It's intuitive up to an extent, but if you want to do and make something complex, that's where there's a more like higher learning curve, like steep learning curve. For simple components, pretty good.
I would probably extend this question to a second part. So they learn the components, but you see components work through their own wrapper, right?
Yeah.
And there were cases when this wrapper had some interference of the global styles for the page and the styles that were inside of the components.
Hmm. So
There were overlaps. So how did
yes,
you fight that?
I honestly told them like whatever design you build, you have the option to preview it. And if the preview doesn't work, that means don't fight the platform. Make it work. Somehow find a way to make it work. Basically, it's not an don't over-engineer thing. If it doesn't work, maybe just try to see something minor adjustment can make it work. If not, revert it. Like start using the components that's available. If needed, do the actual involve the developer to get that done because we don't want to get into business of conflicting the demo side while you build your own components. So that was a message I was clear, like make it work. Obviously we can build own components when needed, but if you see a conflict, like it's working here, not working there, mobile versus desktop, just try it a little bit adjustment if it works. Otherwise, let's revert to fall back to our own work version that were working. So do not like reinvent the wheel kind of thing. If there's simple adjustment you can do to make it work, just do it. It's fine. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of work. So that's pretty much the messaging I was giving them. Like it's make it work. Yeah, I know it's like a big component library. You might not, even with this, you might not have everything you need. For something you need using component builder, make it simple. Or if it's complicated, you want like more features, ask a developer to build that component. Hmm.
First, that's impressive. Two, if there was one thing that, one advice, one tip, the biggest thing you would share about with someone who's about to do the same thing, what would it be?
All right, yeah. Pretty much everything works flawlessly. If your customer needs a preview site, like a separate preview site, uh, not a page builder, there's some work involved there because of it needs its own domain, and sometimes the images don't work on Vercel. Pretty much, there's if you need a preview site, allocate at least 40 hours to build that preview site because it doesn't work out of the box because of obviously it's gonna hit the not the edge, the other the endpoint on the CM. And then there's some restrictions on media. There's restrictions on how much you can query it. Things like that will come into place. You have to optimize it. It's not a lot of work, but then previous site is definitely uh, not included in what the estimates were. We didn't have to do it, but they just requested it. We have to tell them that okay, this is extra dollars. So they were okay, we'll do it later. But then training is one part. In our case, we were lucky because they were already an XMC client. They knew Sitecore pretty well, content tree. But then if it's for someone new, they will have to get trained. And our customers, for the new people who are joining, use Sitecore 360 to get the training and getting through the lessons and some one in-person training also online. So that was training is definitely one area where if it's a new customer who doesn't know Sitecore, we'll have to invest.
Makes sense. Well, it's pretty remarkable, pretty impressive. I mean,
Yes,
I-
it is. Proud of it.
very cool. And that's I think that brings up a good point. This is a really creative approach to
Mhm.
solving the problem. It's knee-jerk reaction is always to start from scratch, rebuild, reinvent
Right.
the wheel, right? But there's so much out there that we can reuse. I mean, how many hero banners, sliders,
Yeah.
carousel lists, components are out there in the wild, right? It's just
Yeah.
you don't have to rebuild it.
I can
Right.
step and even do a step ahead. So since everything is built there, and yes, I need to highlight verticals is pretty relatively new demo project. If you compare to Play Summit, it's like 2 years newer, which means they, same day, I mean demo team, have implemented all the learnings, everything that they struggled with the Play Summit from 2022, right? So it's pretty good, and it has all the components. Now, let's say you can do crazy things. You can get Figma to Next.js components, right? And then what you do effectively, you use AI and you train AI with the existing components. You drop everything you have here in verticals into AI. And then once you input Figma into it, it will start generate you exactly ready to use components from Figma that are fittable into this solution. So that's the first opportunity I see straight away to advance what you demoed. But there might be lots of other crazy things on top of it.
Right. There was one thing they requested, like anytime we add a new website, let's say this website, there were only a few users that should see this. Well, you can do it with roles, but then that's every new user needs to be configured. It's not automatic. They were thinking one role could take care of assigning which user has which website, but then basically we have to tell them like every time you create a new website, you have to go and assign roles who can access these website. That's pretty much like how Sitecore works, but they were not familiar with that. So they wanted to restrict if let's say Martin is only owner of this website, he only sees this when he logs in, doesn't see this. So it's role based, but still configuration is required when you are creating a website. It's a script, but you have to create new roles. Like this will be Sitecore services website role, only have access to this. Sitecore financial website only has this. So it's not automatic. They thought they could use some sort of automation to get it from their IDP, some claims based, but that required more work. So that's it then. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Awesome.
Vasiliy, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the great use case. I hope we'll see more and more of these. It's not often that you come by a client also who's also being willing to be flexible, right? And it's
Yeah.
focusing on value rather than doing things for the sake of doing things. So excellent. Well, with that wraps up our user group. We went the full 2 hours. Wow, that was a marathon. Thank you guys. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for staying with us. This was recorded, so I will go ahead and trim it a bit and share out the link. So Katilia, Boris, thank you guys so much. Thank you for the great presentations, insightful, very
Thank you so
innovative.
much.
Yeah, in many ways. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.